Me too.
Working here too.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Working here too.
Oh, good. Sounds great. That's great. Yeah, Rhodes, so nice to hear Rhodes played well. Wow, great. I love it.
To hear a nice rose played. Let's just leave it.
Oh, well, if you want to put it that way. Let me get to my main spot. I did all my good stuff and then turned down the music. Here we are, Jeff Babko. This is my guest today. Honored to have you here.
Hey, good to be here.
And Jeff and I do not know each other. So I just want
We've known each other for 15 minutes. I say we're.
to But you've been in LA for a long time, right?
I was born at Granada Hills Community Hospital.
You know, I live in Granada Hills.
You do?
Yeah.
See? So we're bros. Yeah, that's not there. That hospital's not there anymore. But it was, I don't remember, on Tampa, I think, or Receipt. I can't remember. But anyway, yeah. Granada Hills Community Hospital. Valley born and bred.
Wow. You know, I keep meeting more and more of you. My husband was, let's see, I think downtown born and then lived in Sunland and North Hollywood. And yeah.
I grew up in Santa Clarita before Santa Clarita was called Santa Clarita. It was just Newhall and Valencia.
Yeah, man. I've been there a lot.
Oh, yeah. Now it's a thing. It wasn't so much a thing then. Pretty dull.
The boyfriend that I moved here with, his father, let's see, worked for Lockheed, so they lived in Palmdale.
So did my father for a while. Yep, he was a Lockheed guy too. So yeah, Lockheed brought a lot of folks out west.
Yeah. That's wild. Well, so did you work as just a regular gigging musician? I'm just kind of curious why we never kind of crossed paths, you know?
I was gigging a lot locally in the 90s when I went to University of Miami. So I went all the way across the country to do that. And then I would have been studying at Cal Arts with Dave Roydstein when I was in junior high and high school.
Oh,
And he had gone to Miami, so he said he thought it would be best for me not to go to Cal. He said, you could go to Cal Arts, but you've been doing this since you were kids. So why don't you go out to Miami, study with who I study with, Vince Maggio, who we just lost last year.
oh.
And I did that. I very, very kind of kicking and screaming. I really didn't want to go. I wanted to stay in LA and try to start working. And I was already doing gigs and stuff in high school. You know, Eric Reed was here and was recommending me to things just because we knew each other. He was at CSUN at that point. And so I was getting little trickles of gigs, but turned out they gave me a scholarship. And so because my folks were at that point both teachers, they're thinking we can't afford to send you to USC for full price or whatever it was. So you're going to Miami. So I went out to Miami. It was the best thing for me. And then came back and started gigging in the 90s, but also got my first tour basically right out of high school. So right out of college. So I would tour a little bit and then I'd be home and I'd gig a little bit. I had a group. I had a little jazz quartet or trio, depending on how much they could, or duo, playing duo gigs at Lunaria. Remember good old Lunaria?
Absolutely, yeah.
Firewood piano and Bernard. So I was doing there at World Cafe in Santa Monica, duo gig there on Wednesdays, I think. Just doing whatever I could, and had a little set that played at a coffee house in the Valley every Thursday. So yeah, just putting it together in between tours. So I was doing both kind of through the 90s.
And then at some point, I'm guessing the tours got like thick for you, right? I mean,
I never, for some reason, so my first tour was Julio Iglesias, and he and it was all my friends from college. There was a Miami-based tour, but I had moved back to LA, so I was the only LA guy. Well, Rafa Padilla was a great percussionist. He was also doing it, but it was great. It would be like 4 days on, a week off. So it was never a 6-month, 3-month, 9-month run. It was East Coast little, and that's kind of been my whole life touring. even when I've toured with James Taylor, I've never been out for more than a couple months.
Yeah.
So I was never a guy. I was never really a road guy. I've dipped in, and I've definitely been on buses. And definitely, Sheryl Crow was, I think, maybe the longest. Sheryl or James, and that's only ever been a summer run,
Oh,
with breaks in between.
yeah. That's
Never
nice.
a road dog. Yeah, and I always when those things would come up for some reason, I'd turn them down.
Oh,
And then I started working TV, so that kept me in town. So it's been. I never, for some reason, I always wanted to be tethered somehow home, for the most part.
that's really nice and very fortunate. And yeah, I've talked to a lot of people who have been kind of in your position, and yeah, it's really interesting looking at one's life, and going, wow, that was that was an interesting way for the whole thing to happen.
Yeah, it
And
was never like a deliberate, I am not going to be the full-time touring guy, but somehow I would, we build a career based off micro choices,
yeah,
one choice at a time. And every choice seemed to point to, oh, this person's blowing up in Europe, so there's going to be a 6-month campaign, and I wouldn't take it. And I don't know why. And I would always be able to recommend somebody that I love or trust that would do it, and they would do it, and their career went a different way. That was
yeah,
also great. But for some reason, I kept basically rooted and just kind of boomeranging back and forth to LA.
yeah. So, has there been one, like I know you work with Martin Short. Uh,
20, this will be my 24th year with Marty.
okay, that's kind of my question. My question was, is there one person you've worked with the longest, or yeah,
Yeah, the
24
amazing
years.
thing is
Wow.
I met Jimmy Kimmel in the mid 90s, and I've been working with him. This will be our 20th year starting this next month. So it'll be 20 years on Jimmy Kimmel. I started with Marty in 1999. Marty Short. So all of and James Taylor, I started subbing for Larry Goldings in 2003. So now everything is in the 20-year mark coming up this next year, which is amazing because a lot of Steve Martin is 77 now, and Marty's 72. They still want to work. James is late 60s. They all still want to work. I was thinking, I'm with guys that aren't going to want to work for that long, but all these guys still want. And Jimmy's basically my age, so we're okay there. We've got another 3 years contract, so they're all pretty long standing, and I'm able to juggle them all, which is crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. 20, that is unusual, I think. Having like at least four different groups or people who you've worked with for 20 years. 20 years, that's my second marriage.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that, how it's like, well, no, actually, we were looking at something that was from the 60s. I can't remember what it was. It was like something on TV. And I was like, what, you know what? That is 60 years ago. That's crazy. The 60s, that was just like, like a little while ago when I used to think about the 60s.
I feel the same way about, I mean, I kind of my coming of age was the 80s, and now it's like I'm working with people, and I'm, the people that come through the TV show and stuff didn't experience the 80s. So it's seems like that was just a second ago. So yeah,
Yeah.
I feel it, but I'm really grateful to have to still be doing what I do, and get to meet people that are coming from a different younger and older perspectives, is always like makes the soup way more flavorful, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's been thousands of people you've met and played with. Um, I'm just curious, what do you think about calling yourself a certain genre player? You play with everybody, or you have played with everybody. So, do you ever put yourself in a genre? Like just hearing you play solo on that is basically a jazz player to me, but I mean, doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. Do you think of yourself as a certain genre?
I think when I was getting into college studying, the major is literally jazz studies, studio music and jazz, it was called.
Yeah.
That seemed perfect for me because growing up near LA and the Valley and stuff, with Toto and these guys that were, my dad would have a local 47, which is the local musicians union directory. And I would just look through the directory, like, look, this guy lives right there. And I was so close. So session musicians was a thing I understood when I was in high school. And I thought that seemed pretty alluring. But then I was also discovering, Dave Roydstein had me studying Chick Corea transcriptions and learning, transcribing Bird and transcribing. And then I was really into Herbie Hancock. And then I got really into crossover, George Duke and stuff like that. So by the time I got to college, it was the Young Lions time. It's early 90s, 90 to 94, I was there. And that was very much a time of jazz is jazz. And that's what it's going to be. And you're going to wear a suit and you're going to play straight ahead. But guys that were coming up at the same time, Greg Kurstin, other people, I think there was a wave of Meldau, a lot of, like, that still loved the pop and rock and progressive music that we grew. I was really into kind of, at the same time I was learning jazz, I was in kind of alternative bands and listening to a lot of English kind of post Bowie kind of stuff. So this was all equally valid and new to me and interesting, whether it was sonic or harmonic or improvisation or whatever it was. Bebop and Brian Eno were all new and exciting to me. So I think when I got the very long answer is when I got to college and then got out of college, I thought I was really into Freddie Hubbard and stuff. I wanted to burn post-bop style. And we did Black Note was a band that was in LA and they had these jam sessions and I was going to the jam sessions and befriending all those guys. And I really wanted to be accepted in that world, playing at Fifth Street Dicks and stuff like that, World Stage, all those places. But then I realized there was a kind of moment in that time period where they were kind of turning their nose, not Black Note necessarily, but this wave of guys was turning their nose up at pop radio or rock radio, and then Radiohead comes out and it's like they're referencing Bitches Brew. So I'm like, wait a second, why are we turning away from this music that I grew up? I mean, I wanted to learn everything off the radio when I was a kid. So whatever Hall & Oates song is on, I'm going to figure it out. Whatever, whatever's on the radio, I wanted Toto songs included. That was a big part of my growing up. So the answer is, I think I wanted to be a genre specific musician at some point in my young career, but I loved pop and progressive music and new music too much. And I'm really glad that we seem to be in a moment where young musicians are pretty genre unspecific.
Yeah, definitely.
It's their game. And that makes music for me a lot newer.
Yeah.
I'm not just trying to be the next, and I loved when I was growing up, guys like Benny Green and then guys like Kenny Kirkland and that were coming out of a tradition. But, Benny obviously has an Oscar thing going, but it was new energy. And so I've always been I've always wanted to stir up the pot. It wouldn't have felt honest for me to just be a new version of something, because I couldn't do it anyway. I couldn't, couldn't seem to pull it off anyway.
And do you still have your own band that you work with, like people?
No, I don't really have time. I put different groups together and like we did a live record that'll come out later this year for Sam First's record label called Clam City with Mark Juliana and Tim LaFave. And then I did another live record with David Pilch, the bass player, and that'll come out, I think, June, and this other record will come out maybe in August or September. So those are really fun, and I love playing with Tim and Mark, but they're so busy it would be hard I'd call that a band, and it is a band, but it's not my band necessarily. And I love playing with Pilch. So
Pilch is
he's the man.
He's great. He's amazing. Yeah.
Paul Pilch, the truth. He's the truth. He's the center. It's the best. Yeah.
I remember when I first heard him play, I think it was at the Blue Whale, and I was just absolutely stunned. I probably was in the front row because I used to sit in the front row a lot. And I couldn't keep my attention off of him, what he was playing, his choices, and there was just incredibly delicious. And then I got to know him, and
He's exactly what you want him to be. He's just so much fun, and
Yeah.
I love him so much. And yeah, it's pretty. And then my buddy Zach Danziger, who's a drummer, I think, I don't know if this is a spoiler alert, but he's coming back west from long time in New York. So we used to have a band it's the two of us. And speaking of the Blue Whale, and we used to play at the Whale every couple months, and we would repurpose old bad movies and put it to music. So that will probably come back now that he's coming back west. It takes a lot of work to time it out with the film, but it was really exciting when we were doing it. So I'm looking forward to doing that again.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I don't think I saw you at the Blue Whale, which is just my too bad on me.
Oh
Um,
man, that was my safe space. That was the best. I miss it. Hopefully, I know June was looking
you.
around for rooms, so I'm hoping that happens.
Exactly. He was actually my student. Like through
Really?
yeah, through MI. I
Oh,
taught at MI and then I left MI, but they were still sending me students and they sent me June. He was just looking for a jazz teacher and he came and I said, "Well, do you know how to sing jazz?" And he said, "Well, I don't know, maybe." I said, "Well, let's hear it." So I said, "What do you know?" He said, "All the things you are." So I'm like, "Okay, let's see." And then he sang it great. And I said, "Do you scat?" And he said, "Well, and I said, "Okay, well, let's see." And yep, he was great. He was young, but he was great. And so yeah, I was kind of like his jazz mama. And then one day he called me up and he said, I'm opening a club." And I said, "Really?" And then the Blue Whale was born and yeah, that was just I'm so proud of him because he's such a good person and he did it for all the right reasons and it manifested in such a great way.
absolutely. I know Gretchen knew him at Parlato knew him as a singer too, and there was only a couple people that we knew as the Blue Whale June as a singer, and they all just loved who he was as a musician. So I think he brought that in his very quiet, um, classy way to the
Yeah.
club. Just a love. He never tooted his own horn at any point and never referenced his own
Yeah,
music. That's pretty amazing.
I know. I totally know. So great. One of my friends here on the comments says that we should talk about your experience in the band of other brothers.
Okay. Yeah. Don't spell out the acronym, folks. This is live streaming. We'll just leave it at that. Yeah, what do you want to know, friend? It's a fun band. I can give you the origin story is that Jeff Coffin, who's the sax player in the now in the Dave Matthews Band, Nashville-based guy, he and I had, if we're going way back, met at a doctoral recital for my buddy Tom Giampietro, who's now at the University of UMass Amherst, running that program. And we went out and did his doctoral recital at the University of Northern Iowa. Is that a thing? Or Iowa? Yeah,
Maybe.
Cedar Falls, I believe. Anyway,
Okay.
is that Idaho? Idaho.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, great. You can in the chat. This guy sucks. Anyway, we met there. We became fast friends, and we wanted to do a project together. So Jeff Coffin, Vinny Collier, and myself did a trio record, maybe 2004. And then we wanted to do another record. I said, I don't want to do a trio record. I don't want to kick bass. I want to have somebody. And I've been listening to a lot of Pat Martino at the time and listening to this record Starbright from the 70s. Will Lee was on it, bass player Will Lee, and Letterman was at this point over. Will was in the house band at the Letterman show. So I asked Will if he'd want to do this. He said yes. I said, let's record in Nashville. Jeff is in Nashville. Keith Carlock just moved to Nashville. Keith is the drummer in Steely Dan. He's an old friend. We used to tour with James together a little bit, Taylor, and we had played a couple bass player live things together. And so it just kind of happened. And then I realized, well, I'm so influenced by Martino right now, we should get a guitar player. So I had befriended Nir Felder way back when he was playing with Chuck Mangione. Because Dave Tull, who I think you know, Dave had introduced us. I had just missed Dave in Colorado. I remember all this. on a gig. He was at the same venue, but the night before. So he said, we're in New York. Said, I'll be in New York this weekend. I went to see them at the Blue Note, met Near, just fell in love with Near's playing. So Near became the fifth other brother, and we made this record with engineer Nico Bolas. I don't know how long ago, maybe 7 years ago, at Blackbird in Nashville. We did some gigs. We did some LA gigs at the Whale and some other stuff. And then we made another record during 2020 lockdown remotely, basically. Stanley Clark guest on it. And but it's all the same guys. And then we did a tour in this last spring. And they're doing, I couldn't do it, the Gen conference, the educational conference next week, which I couldn't do, but we're hoping to do more. We have some stuff in 2024 planned, and hopefully some more stuff. It's tough. Will Lee spends half his time in France, so he's tough to get a hold of. So Victor Wooten's doing this week's gig, but
nice.
It's a fun collective. It's becoming a fun collective, and the tour was really fun, and that's where I do feel like a jazz player. It's really fun to stretch and be with the same guys that you can trust, and we all know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we all bust pretty well. So it's a good. That's the band of
Now,
other folks.
I have a clip here that my friend put up. I don't know what it. I don't know if you would mind. Is it this one?
This Whale, that looks like it.
This is this says at the Iridium. Is that cool?
Oh, that's at the Iridium. Sure. Yeah, I forgot. We did the Iridium in New York for a week too.
All right, let's play a little.
Look how young and look how youthful we are.
Very. What'd you say?
Everyone's like, who's soloing now?
But it's really nice too because it's kind of this comfortable jamming, like let's just feel the whole thing and see what happens. It's really nice.
Oh, thanks. That's Jeff Coffin's tune. I don't remember the name, but we hadn't played that in a long time. I like that song.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a drum solo. That's right. It's a drum solo.
Okay. All right.
Bravo. Keith Carlock, my hero.
Well, that was fun. Oh, and this looks like a different night or something.
Different night. All yeah, different outfits.
Yeah. The hat, it's different. It's a different hat, man.
Yeah, we wear different hats sometimes.
Um, it looks like you know Taylor Hatch, do you?
yes,
He's,
it's been a long
he's
time.
Yeah. He comes on the show a lot. He gives me questions that are extremely deep. You want to hear one?
Oh, deep cuts, absolutely. Hey Taylor, what's up?
Well, let's see. Now that I've set you up, Taylor, with deep questions, I mean, he's mentioning George Stone's student being
Okay,
George Stone, like
true.
some stories of that. What's the funniest moment in Jimmy Kimmel's band? And let's see, in your opinion, what about the music industry now just ticks you off?
Ooh,
If you had
God.
to change anything that could be resolved for session musicians, what would you want to change?
Sessions. I'd like sessions. That would be the ultimate resolution in that one.
And then when it comes to composition, he asks composition questions too. Do you always start with a melody first? How do you go about writing a tune until it's finished? So take your pick. What would you
I
like
like all
to?
those. I think I can address most of those pretty quickly. George Stone was first, I think.
Yeah.
Shout out. Have you had George on the show?
No,
Do you know George?
I don't. I'll write his name down.
George is awesome. So he also grew up in Newhall, California. He lived right across Lyons Avenue, which is the main drag there in Santa Clarita. I lived on the north side of Lyons. He lived south of Lyons, so I could ride my bike over. He's the one that turned me on to really the nuances of the Fender Rhodes. In fact, that guy that you opened the show with, who's Benjamin, who has designed this preamp. George knows about that Rhodes. He's a Rhodes connoisseur.
Oh.
He turned me on to kind of Victor Feldman. He definitely turned me on to Claire Fisher and Harmony. And
Oh.
George was just an incredible, even, in high school, we went to the same high school. He's a couple years older, so we didn't overlap, but he was writing really deep big band arrangements and orchestrations. And then when he went to Cal State Northridge, he continued that. They made a great record called Giant Steps that was just these like way beyond mature, deep arrangements. So I got a lot of harmonic knowledge from George, and knowledge about the Rhodes and about audio. And then he ended up coming up. I'm on the Central Coast now. He ended up coming up to Cuesta College, which is only about 50
yeah.
from here,
Yeah.
to teach, to run the audio department. And so he's up here most of the time. He still plays. He's a great, beautiful trumpet and flugelhorn and pianist. He plays at Libretto. I know you spoke to Corey. He plays there, and I don't see him often, but really when I was 14, 15, 16, really learning about jazz, he didn't directly teach me. Well, he did at heart. He ended up taking over the high school program my last year, but really through his knowledge, sharing it with me, got me so deeply into harmony, and he's so much deeper with that than I am. And really, I've called George to ask him about Claire Fisher's a song called Suddenly. And this is maybe 8-9 years ago. And and he played it note for note without referencing it or reading it. He remembered every move. And if anybody's ever studied Claire's harmony,
Yeah.
he knew every move from memory with zero prep. I mean, because there was something I couldn't figure out, and he knew every move, because Claire's movements aren't blocks. They're every note gets a different direction. So it's like every finger gets a different GPS. So it's like 10 GPS is going at once. He remembered every move. So George is a deep dude. So
Wow.
Taylor. And, sessions, gosh, session musicians. I mean, I can remember times where I'm still working a lot doing sessions, which is great, but they're not the same kind of sessions they were 10 years ago, where I'd be at Sunset Sound for 3 days doing a record, then maybe at Henson for 5 days doing a record. Then, now it's a single, it's a single session, or a lot of remote recording from my studio, sending a lot of tracks to different producers and different artists, probably doing 70% more of that than I was doing 10 years ago, or having artists or producers come over and work with me at my place. Still getting out to Sunset. I did a bunch with Joe Bonamassa this year at Sunset. He's got this kind of revolving artists and record label happening at Sunset Sound. And still doing records, and I did a lot more TV and movies in the last 10 years. So we had our first big #1 record with We Don't Talk About Bruno this year, which was very exciting. And that was done in the height of COVID. So that was just me overdubbing with my really good friend Mike Elizondo, producing from Nashville on Zoom. And Lin-Manuel wasn't there that day. It was just producers. So when I met Lin-Manuel Miranda, maybe 6 months after it had become a #1 record at Kimmel, actually, we met, and it was amazing because he knew I'd played on it, but we never met. It's so bizarre. So sessions aren't like they used to be, but I am not a doom and gloom guy about it. I just see it as having morphed into something else. I wish I could. I did a session for a Japanese singer maybe 2 months ago with Nathan East and Steve Ferroni, and we were just laughing. I know Steve, I know both of them very well. And I asked Steve, I said, could you email me your tracks from across the room so I remember how to do it? We hadn't been in the same room in a long time making music. So it's changed. I miss guys in the room hanging out. I'd forgotten you can actually cue somebody with your eyes, like been a while. Miss that. But you just have to keep up with what it is now, and that's just life.
Yeah. Well, that's a big philosophical point of view, isn't it? And I mean, I also am not the doom and gloom type of person. I'm definitely a glass half full. So every time I see something happening, it's like, yeah, well, it's life. It's changing. It's always developing. It's improvising. And, when people, I don't know how many years ago, 15 years ago or something, people would say, jazz is dead. It's just, because it's, they were looking at an old style of jazz that had, that really hadn't changed. It was the new stuff coming in, really, that was different. And it's like, that's just stupid. It's just, jazz isn't dead. This is what jazz is. Jazz is always changing and developing. So, yeah.
If you look your mirror and saying it's not what it was, it's not what it was back there, then you're missing what's happening now, and you're also not looking forward to what you can bring to the table to either keep what you love about it alive or make it your own version, and then that's what it lets it evolve. I mean, it isn't ever, it's not what sessions aren't what they were during Wrecking Crew time or during that 80s heyday.
That's for sure.
A lot of us wish it could be, because residuals were great, but also there was just work all day. And if you talk to the New York guys, there was work. It was a jingle at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
An hour, maybe a 9 a.m., then a 10 a.m. single, then a 2 p.m. And my wife, who's a violinist, still does basically 10 a.m. single or 10 a.m. double or a 2 p.m. single. It's very much. And when I do TV or film, it's that. But most of the time, it's It's new versions of sessions. Can you come over and overdub? Can you overdub from your place? We've got a single at 10, unless it's movies or TV, which is full band, which still happens pretty often. You know,
Yeah.
I have a couple a month. Rock records, not so much. Pop records, not so much. Band stuff in the room, which I do miss.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to ask. I really liked the Hulu show of Steve Martin and Martin Short. Did you play with that?
Nope. I'm on a Netflix live show with them. That's from 2018, I think.
Uh-huh.
When they got the new show that was developed just pre-COVID, and it's scored by a guy. My wife works on it, but I don't
Oh.
have anything to do with it. I just wait while they film the season, and then we go out on the road.
I just have to ask about them, your
Sure.
work with them, because how it came about and how much you love it, obviously, and because I think those two guys and James Taylor, for that matter, too, are people. Well, I'm almost 70, so people from my generation, if you want to call it, or growing up. I mean, those three guys were my friends. I didn't know them personally, but they were my friends, and especially James Taylor because of his early uh, life and what he went through. And I was going through stuff at the same time. So that was extremely important to me, because
That's to getting to the other side. That's good. That's
yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you. And it's because I think because those guys, they feel real, you know.
real. You're correct. That's all. Yes. They're as approachable and hardworking
Yeah.
and viable and invested emotionally and just their work ethic, but also connected. We just were with James last week, and to see him work, to see him play live, to see what he does on the guitar, to hear his voice, to see him put a set together, to hang out. He's just the loveliest guy. He's the most connected guy. When he speaks to you, he's speaking to you. We are having a conversation. Loving guy. He's inspiring to no end. I just love him, and yeah, and as a musician, the way he supports his musicians and loves what everybody brings to the table as it's not just, some artists show up and the band is invisible.
Yeah.
It's just help. It's the help.
Yeah.
Definitely I don't want to speak for him, but I feel like he feels like one of the band and also one of the singers. He always has four singers. He feels one with. He's aware that he's the leader, but one with. And a band at dinner is a band hang, and he is part of the fabric. Very grounded, very much, steeped in gratitude and I suppose, recovery is part of that, but great families, kids are great. It's just, yeah, I'm really lucky that's and as far as Marty, I auditioned for Martin Short's TV show in 1999. I just come off the road with Robben Ford, guitar player,
Huh.
and bless you. There was audition for
Sorry. I have very dramatic sneezes. Okay.
and I auditioned and I got it. I knew all the guys in the band. Will Kennedy from the Yellow Jackets was playing drums, and I didn't know Rhonda Smith, the bass player, but they had made a change in the keyboard department. This is before the show launched, but after previews started. So I just got in the nick of time. I had studied SCTV. I watched. I wasn't studying anything. I was watching SCTV and SNL religiously through high school and college. So I knew all of his sketches and his characters. So his brother actually auditioned me, Mike, who's a great pianist actually. And we became fast friends, and it was just an easy audition because I felt like I had been prepping for it my whole life, between Marty's musical characters and just his other. And so obviously I had watched Three Amigos 1,000 times, so I was fan of Steve. So came in the picture. I went to a Steve concert with the Steve Canyon Rangers at the Pantages, my wife, and that had to be 20, maybe four, no, earlier, 2013, maybe even earlier. And really loved his show with the Steve Canyon Rangers. To me, it was a perfect variety show. He was doing bluegrass, little comedy setup, more bluegrass. The band would take over. He'd do a little soloist. It's just a great programming. And I was just so impressed with, beyond his writing and his perfect comedy writing and the arc of where to put a joke, how to, it's very much like music, how to phrase it, why this word when it pops makes the joke work, and why if you don't, why if you dip it here. I was fascinated with that. So we toyed with bringing Steve into I had been touring just with Marty for a few years live and picking up bands in different cities. I was his music director. So I'd bring all the, pre-Dropbox. I'm bringing all the books of music for I think we had like a 6-piece,
Yeah.
teach them in a half hour. And we brought Steve into that fold. Then it became just me and Marty going just duo, and brought Steve into that. And then we merged Steve and the Steve Canyon Rangers, myself and Marty. We started touring in probably 2015 or 16. And that's pretty much the current version of the tour. And Marty is like my family. We have family functions together and everything. And Steve is on the East Coast more often, so I don't see him as often. Steve is incredible to watch create and work and think. He's always thinking, he's always prepping. And Marty is always very organized with his work, his day's outlook, but he's very loose and a lot of fun. So, usually on the rides to the gig, it's driver, tour manager, Steve, Marty. It's always the same seat. Steve, Marty, me in the back, in the very back, like the child. And I learn a lot on those drives. I listen a lot to, after the gig, they're still tweaking what we did or didn't do right during that show, what could use work. They're never off. And on the way to the gig, they're prepping if there's any new material. It's always in motion. And the creativity is always, the stew is always being stirred. It's incredible. They're both so bright. They have different energies, but they're both really always, I don't want to say always on, because they're not always entertaining, but they're always working out how things could be better. And sometimes I'm getting the front end of that if they're working out the next season of Only Murders, and sometimes it's for our show. So they're really as far as also working on a late night television show, watching how they prepare for any appearance. They phone nothing in. I don't think either one of them have ever phoned anything in. It's an incredible work ethic.
That's gorgeous. It's really beautiful. Very, very nice. It's great to hear. I mean, I kind of knew it. Sometimes you hear about your heroes or the people that you think very highly of, and they're not that, but it's great to hear it when it happens.
Oh, and the hangs in the hotel afterwards are legendary. Yeah, we all hang at least once, or we usually do 3-day runs. So I do Kimmel Monday through Thursday, then a red eye on Thursday night. We'll play Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Then I take the first flight back on Monday to make Kimmel. So on the 3-day runs, the first or second night is usually a hang in somebody's hotel room. Pretty epic.
That's great.
Yeah.
And the Kimmel show, that's that's fun. And you said you've been with the Kimmel show for like 20 years,
Yes,
basically.
20
And
years in 2 weeks. Yeah.
oh, it's amazing. So my husband actually was lighting board operator on the Tonight Show
Oh,
for
cool.
25 years or something. So I know a lot about, behind the scenes and stuff, but not totally about from the musician's point of view. So, yeah, what goes on, or at this point, I'm sure you don't phone it in at all, but at this point, is it rehearsal the day of, or is there any rehearsal, or what happens with that?
Depends on the day. We've got I write a lot for the show. So between that and the cover songs we play a couple modern kind of radio songs to just try to keep it sounding of this moment. And a lot of we have 2 saxophones. So I try to it's kind of a Crusaders kind of vibe, soul jazz, Eddie Harris, any of these kind of goes down smooth, fun, positive feeling songs. So we've got enough material. I try to bring in a couple new a month. We try to bring in a couple new covers a month. If we're rehearsing something new, great. Rhonda Smith, who was in our first Martin Short show, is now our bassist. Jimmy Earl retired last summer. So with her there, we're rehearsing a little more often just because she's getting so comfortable. So that's less than it was when she first came on. But really, we're rehearsing if we have any comedy material or anything like that, or a comedy piece to work on. Either I do that in my studio or there, or if it's band stuff, we have to rehearse that. But the rehearsals aren't long, and some days we skip. Some days we really have to keep quiet because they're shooting another bit. So it's not very stressful. We have a lot of guest artists, so obviously if there's a guest artist, we rehearse with them. But we can do it. Like you said, we're not phoning it in, but we can do it pretty efficiently. It's been a long time.
Interesting. That's fun.
And we watch his rehearsal as well because he likes to gauge the band's reaction to the jokes. So that's us to laugh.
He's pretty amazing, I think. He's awesome, a very, very talented human.
Love him much.
Let's see. Taylor would like to know what record of any genre, he likes this question, would you say is most underrated?
What musician of any genre was most
underrated? What record?
Oh, any genre. Oh, all right, Taylor. I see what you're doing. Okay. I have a couple. Okay. I mean, I always go to, and it's funny, my buddy John Button, who's a bass player, plays with the Who now. We used to play at that regular coffee house gig in the 90s. It tells you when you stick with your buddies, like we all look back and go, oh God. John and I both like this Thomas Dolby record called The Flat Earth from 1980.
Oh, yeah.
It's a beautiful record. And, Thomas kind of went down as the one hit, She Blinded Me with Science, new wave synth guy. But this record harmonically and just its depth is beautiful to me, and I always go back. Also, his first record, which is more synth heavy, Golden Age of Wireless. Just if you pick apart the songs without all the technology, so good. I really love him, and I always end up coming back to that record. So, I'll just say that one for now. I listen probably more than I play, so I have way too many records, and that record's pretty awesome.
That's cool. I love finding people who have a lot of records and who actually listen, because it's
a problem.
It's like a career, right?
There's always once I think, and then I want to listen to a record I really like 3 times in a row. That means I'm not listening to 10 records I've never heard. So I feel like I'm always playing catch up.
I used to listen to records over and over. I would have, technology changes. I had a cassette, a CD player, six CDs in the kitchen. So I would put on 6 CDs and I'd leave them all on there for 2 weeks. And for 2 weeks, I was listening over and over to these records, and it was great. Yeah. I really, really liked that. And then, technology happened. And whereas I like to hear new stuff, right? Because I can put on Apple Music or whatever. But I have CDs that there's a bunch sitting right here that I really want to listen to more. There's a really amazing guy in France. I bet you would love this guy. His name is Daniel Yasevic. Yasevic, is that his name? It's kind of a weird pronunciation. Okay. Daniel Yvanek. Yvinec. You should check him out. This particular record is just absolutely
Oh,
friggin'
well, you'll send
gorgeous.
me arrangements. I'm all set. Yes, absolutely. Count me in.
Yeah, this is just gorgeous. And but this guy Daniel, he's really brilliant and thoughtful and musical. He's a producer. He plays bass. He has a lot of records, by the way. I've heard like a small group of musicians, you know, they hang out together and they listen to records, and he's always pointing out stuff. So you should
Love
hook
it.
up with him. Yeah, he's a really cool guy. Um, let's listen a little bit. I'd like to maybe get your feeling on what to listen to. Let's see, where are we? Well, here's a Jeff Babko.
You're that guy.
I really do like hearing your solo thing, just fooling around on the roads
You were
or the
too
Kronos. It's very nice, actually, quite nice. So let's see. There's music. There might be some. Here's Abe and Tim with you.
Huh? Yep.
How's that?
That's fun. That's us playing a session for Lyle Workman. That's a fun one.
It's very short. So, oh, look at that. Nice.
Oh, that's for a drummer. That was for a drum company. That's a sadly Sage and Sound. I don't know if you ever worked at Sage and Sound.
Yes, I did.
It's on now, but that
Yeah.
was all these Sage and Sound sessions.
Oh my God. That's wild. I'm going to go here just because I want to hear Andrew too. Cool, man. Yeah, boy, Andrew Sinowick is really good too.
He's a very good guitar player. Another University of Miami grad, my man.
Really good. What was I thinking? I wanted to ask you something. Oh, this is a silly question, kind of.
Oh, bring it on.
Not so silly, but how important do you think space is in your playing? I noticed that you use space a lot, so I'm just curious.
It's not a stupid question at all, and I appreciate you saying that. I think it's, I mean, it's cliche. The cliche answer is, it's as important as the note. But the older I get, and the more, here's I guess the best answer. The more I would listen back, especially when I was young, but even still, I recognized, listening back to what I had recorded, how important space is to the overall. There was I've told this story a bunch of times. I remember playing a gig at the Baked Potato, like 15 years ago or something, and playing and going, what would it be like to play as if I had the listener's ears rather than play with the player's brain? Because the player's brain is always just, where do I fit in? Where do I fit in? What do I play here? Rather than thinking big picture, zooming out as a listener and going, what is the most supportive? What is the most value that I can provide with my role? And it's hard to do. So just to answer about space, I mean, sometimes the best thing is to lay out. Sometimes the funkiest or most soulful or most supportive musical statement you can make is letting the others make the statement or letting everything else breathe. So space for space sake, I mean, yeah, sometimes you need to contribute to move things along. And sometimes I tend to do that a little too much. Like if I feel like it's not, I'll tend to overplay to just try to get something out of it, put a little too much gas.
Yeah.
But the ultimate contribution, I think, to music can be just to listen and to see, to experience what the music really, what ingredient best serves the music overall. And I think it's a funny thing in jazz, like I'm comping, I'm soloing, I'm comping, it's like we're always doing. But I mean, I think maybe pop music and session music, and you realize, oh, what, and sometimes it's hard to convince a producer that taciting is that you're not just being lazy, but sometimes they
Yeah.
want, because you're there. It's like, man, that's not, you don't need this there. This
Yeah.
doesn't, this, especially if this is subdividing a lot, or if the lyric is busy, or if the lyric isn't speaking, or don't let me clutter it up.
Yeah.
So the ultimate, I think the ultimate contribution could be space, but it takes a lot of, I don't want to use say maturity, but a lot of perspective to
Yeah.
recognize where space is really the ultimate support.
Yeah. I think you said it when you said listening. I was just thinking of a workshop that I had given last month, and like this one singer, great singer, but it just, there was a pianist and a bassist. I had this workshop, each singer got a half hour. So it's really interesting when the singer, I've seen this like at my jam sessions a lot. If the singer is not listening to the band sounds worse,
Right.
which is weird. They're not, you know what I mean? You wouldn't think necessarily that would be the case, but so I said to her, you're listening only to yourself, which at first she was like, I thought, oh, maybe I've overstepped my commentary. And I said, you have to listen to the piano player. So she did that, and all of a sudden it was perfect. There was space because she was listening, and she wasn't thinking, she was responding. She was in the
Collective
environment of
moment.
that
Yeah.
music. Yeah. So it's really good. And I also was thinking while you were talking, I guess you work with Jay Bellarose.
Huh?
Yeah, and so Wait, am I thinking of the right? It's the drummer,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now that guy is really like space and in the moment and wow, you know?
When I listen to Jay or play with Jay, it's like I'm such a record listening junkie.
Hmm.
It's really like listening to a record. It's bananas. It's like I dropped the needle on a record. Whatever he plays is like it's already been produced and put on. It's like, oh my God, it's so thoughtful and uh fully realized. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like whatever beat, groove, texture he's providing, it's like, yeah, I don't want to mess that up. That's cooked. Like, let's not step in it. Yeah, he's remarkable.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel so lucky to live in this area and hear all these people live, you know. I mean, records are great too, and especially if you just stop everything else you're doing and actually listen. But seeing live is great too. I tonight I'm going to try and go out to see Jimmy Branley.
Oh, cool.
I love his playing too. He's so
Tell him what's
good.
up.
Yeah. And do you know my ex brother-in-law is Joey Heredia? Do you know him? So Monday, actually, Joey De Leon was supposed to be on, but he got sick. So I was just listening to some videos that he was on, and he was on some with Joey Heredia. And now he's another drummer that just, when you listen to him, and it's like, it's so exciting.
Yeah.
And it's not because he's playing a million billion notes, although he can do that, but it's not because of that. There's this fluidity and connection that he has. It's thrilling, you know, really nice.
I love Joey's spirit and just his attitude on the drums and the groove and the playfulness.
Yeah, yeah,
Pretty awesome.
yeah,
I used to go hear him a lot with the trio and then with Scott Henderson as that was, yeah, he represented why nobody should bad rap the Valley to me. Like, because he all up and down Ventura Boulevard playing was it Lava Lee and Cordial, and then they played at the Studio City Billiards Club, and it was like he'd be all, and it was killing. Potato, of course, Le Cafe, all those great clubs. He was
yeah,
just the king, and man, ferocious.
yeah,
Love Joey's play.
yeah. Taylor would like to know, in your own words, what advice would you give to musicians who are striving to find their sense of maturity but are having trouble finding it for themselves?
Oh gosh. Uh I mean, if I listen to a record that or something I played on when I was in my 20s, I hear, vim and vigor and belief that this is what I'm supposed to do, which is, I think, true. I think that's is all I ever knew how to do or wanted to do. But I hear immaturity. I hear I hear excitement and excitable kind of leaning forward into life, which is what you do when you're in your 20s. You're leaning forward, you're looking forward, you're racing. But if I listen to David Page or the guys that or David Foster, even like their pocket is so relaxed and deep and on the back and sitting, I wish I could feel like I had that maturity when I was young. So I think maturity, it's subjective. I think in a way, it's like, I know that I don't like the immaturity of when I was young. But I do really respect that I was leaning into life and music and not shying away from, and I think that the guys that I was playing with that were older needed that extra, if guys that were, if I was playing with, like I was playing with Simon Phillips and Steve Lukather and all these guys when I was 24 and they're 40, they really missed being 24 and excited, and they really appreciated that. So what I lacked in maturity, I had a surplus in energy, and excited, just being so excited to be making music. And I wouldn't trade that for the world. And I think I still have that. But maturity only comes with experience, I think. And it, I used to play with Zigaboo Modeliste from the Meters, and I used to strive to sound like I was from New Orleans. I'm from the Valley. I'm not from New Orleans. So Zig never seemed to mind what I brought to the table, but I'm never going to be Ivan Neville as much as I'd love to be. So we only have our experience, but I think maturity is up for the musician to define for oneself. And I think I really it's really hard for me still to listen back to stuff I play. So I appreciate you making me do so I can go, oh, that wasn't horrible. But only by listening to myself did I discover what I lacked in maturity. If that's it's hard to do.
Yeah. I mean, it's just it's a human thing. Well, I mean, we're always going to be doing that. We're young. We have these points of view. Yeah, and you keep living and having experiences, and then you cognite, and then you move on again, and yeah, it's pretty fun realizing that there's lessons all around us, and all we have to do is it's like being at a buffet, Ooh, I think I'll have a little of that,
Right. Well, I remember, and I remember going on a date when I was 27 or something, and the woman was older. She was 32 or something, right? And I remember she said toward the end of the date, she said, "You're not going to really know anything until you're over 30." And I turned to her and I said, "I'm 27 and I know effing everything." I remember answering that, and I believed it. That's not even me. I'm sure alcohol was involved, but it's so funny that I think about that a lot, because I really believed I had figured it all out, and I'd figured nothing out. But I don't know if I would have played the way I played when I was that age, I mean, there's a bit of being in your 20s where, we're just teaching our son to ski, and it's like, I remember somebody saying it's a lot easier to learn to ski when you don't have far to fall. And I think when you're 24, 23, 20, you don't have that far to fall. So make the mistakes if you have to. And I'm glad that I still think of that 27-year-old as a kid. That's a dumb thing to say, but it's great to if you're willing to listen to people and learn and listen back to yourself and realize the mistakes you're making.
Yeah.
It's okay to be young and dumb. Just if you're kind and you're willing to grow and not, you may think you have all the answers, but you're like a child a little bit. So, but that childlike wonder is such a great energy to have. And sometimes when I'm playing a gig where I'm supposed to light it up and be like really excited, I'm just not that guy, but I can light it up still. I realize, oh, okay, I can play that character. I remember how to do it. I know what this song needs, and I know what this audience needs. So let's turn it up but it's not only one gear anymore. It's like a choice,
Yeah. That's really cool. Let's see, Taylor. This might be fun to watch. My friend Dan, he is
What's up, Dan?
hosting a Blue Whale gig. Let's go check it out. Not too long ago, only 7 years ago.
for sure.
This is they're a great band. Lewis Cole too is really he's a
I was
good
watching Lewis's big band last night. He's
yeah.
I mean, on YouTube on the from the Troubadour, he's just sensational. Love that guy.
Remember when he first was like working at the Blue Whale with the singer?
With
Um,
Genevieve, yep,
yeah. Oh man, I was
yep,
I was totally knocked out by that. It was so cool.
yeah, he's incredible. Love that guy.
Actually, his sister is kind of under the what do you call it? You know, not that well known.
Radar.
Yeah, under the radar. Thank you. That's the word, radar. But she's really a good singer. She swings her ass off. She's a student of mine, but she's really good.
Well, his parents are the raddest people ever, so I'm not surprised that anybody in that family is super. His parents are just awesome and supportive, and that's where it comes from. I think sometimes you just got to have people that believe in you, and they really, yeah, they're really special folks.
Yeah. Did you? Let's see. You'll have to excuse me. I peruse bios, but I don't actually read them in detail and research because I actually want to treat these interviews as more of a like, oh, you did that, you know, kind of getting to know you. So did you come? You had a musical family, right? Your dad was.
So yeah, my dad, yeah, it goes pretty quite a few generations. My dad's mom played piano and trombone out in coal mining country in Pennsylvania. My
Huh.
dad studied music, became a music teacher, taught at Hart High out in Santa Clarita in the late 60s to the early 80s. Then he stopped to work at Lockheed, as we talked about, and then he was doing sessions, had some session work writing jingles and stuff through the 80s, and then went back to teaching and had a very successful jazz. He was the jazz band director at various high schools in Santa Clarita through the 90s until he retired. And now still works for Stanford Jazz and stuff, recruiting and teaching them about the program. My mother's father was a music teacher in Burbank, and played sax and in jazz bands, and during and after the war. So yeah, and then in between, pretty much everybody, my dad, my mom both play, and a lot of music in the house, a lot of listening to music in the house.
Do you have siblings?
Only child.
Oh, wow.
Yep. All the rumors are true. Yeah.
Um, let's see. Well, Taylor has a few questions here. Um, he wants to oh, no, he's going to ask George about the Claire Fisher piece. Yeah, I sang,
Suddenly, it's that one, but he knows everyone back to front. So, and he wasn't on any one of them.
I sang, what was that called? Oh gosh, I forget the name of the song. It's about a bird on the sea.
Gaviota.
Yeah, Gaviota. I sang that for one of um, Fisher's.
Brent.
Thank you, Brent. Brent Fisher's outdoor gigs this year.
Oh yeah.
Quinn, Quinn,
Quinn.
Quinn.
Quinn,
God,
man.
my mouth isn't working today.
Oh, I got you. I'll fill in the blanks.
Anyway, that book is pretty wild for the piano player, especially, I think.
Right?
Yep.
That one.
That's it.
Yeah, that's a good tune.
Yeah. Yeah. Quinn was very impressive to me.
Quinn's a bad dude. I love that guy.
Yeah. Really amazing. And Taylor's asking when you released El Musico, what was really fun about that? And
What's
what
wrong
was
with you?
challenging?
What was fun about that is that was a record that I didn't intend to make. It wasn't like I'm going to write all this material for a record. The album before that, Crux, was the opposite. I'm going to write all this material for a record, which also that record turned out as well. And I got this amazing mixer to mix it. That Crux turned out just like beyond. That was all the prep and really a realized record. El Musico was the opposite, where I just had all this material that I'd been playing at ETA with. We had Matt Mayhall, who moved away, great drummer.
Yeah.
Had a regular gig, and so I would challenge myself to write a new tune for every gig. So then I had all this material that hadn't been recorded, and then I had to put a gig together for Sam first, and I was doing a lot of fiddling in my studio just around. So I had all this stuff, and then I had a day in the studio with Justin Stanley, great engineer friend of mine. So it just happened all to come together. I had all these tunes. I had a band that had been rehearsing for Sam first, Abe Rounds and Kaveh Rastegar and Tim Young, and so I had enough material for records. So I thought, well, rather than have it, collect dust in a disk drive, just put it out. And I love the way that it came out, just because it was the opposite of the record before. Really little agenda. Just there's a record that happened and here it is. So let's get it out into the world so I can move on. So I feel like there's a lot of real moments that just exist because I collected what was in the air that had already. Yeah, it's kind of cool, and it's just, I guess, just organic. Just feels like it just grew out of the ground.
Was there anything on that was challenging to finish or whatever?
No, not that album. I'm trying to think. No, it was no, I just followed the lead. I just let it do. I just let it. It's always, though, the challenge with making a record is it's really easy for me to come up, with material and bands. I have so many friends that are musicians. Yeah. But to see it through, like on that record, the funny thing is I decided not to have a launch campaign or anything. I thought, well, the record wasn't intended to be a record, so I'm just going to see so I sent it I had this little test to myself. I sent it to a bunch of record stores, physical record stores. I sent like 3 copies to probably 40 record stores. And I said, a cover letter, mostly record stores I visited when I go on the road. And I love your store. Put these in your bins just because I want them in your bins. This has no distribution. I don't care if you send me no money back. I don't care if they ever sell. I just want when people go to a record store to see this record there, and you collect everything or not. I don't care. I don't care if you take them home for your employees. I don't care. So sometimes I still see a copy if I go back to that record store. I went to one in Dayton, Ohio, and it was still sitting there. Omega Music, I think. And I did the same with radio stations. I had no radio campaign. I just sent it to radio stations that I like. And that ended up with I have a weekly radio show. So because the program director at Jazz FM in Toronto was familiar with me, he reached out and said, well, we just became friends. So when I went to Toronto, I did an interview for the record. And now I've spent, it's almost 3 years doing a Monday radio show for them. And
Wow.
It's funny. It's like, if you just kind of do I didn't have an agenda. Like I said, I didn't have a plan. I just like, the music's here. What happens if I just like literally just get it out into the world? But the challenge is, you're not going to get playlisted. You're not going to get traditional radio play if you don't pay a PR person, pay it's not just making the music, collecting it, then pressing records. And I press vinyl on it. That takes a long time now. It's the logistics that are tricky nowadays.
Yeah. And so your radio show, 3 years, right?
It'll be in April. Yeah. So 2.5. So
yeah. So what do you do? Do you talk, just play records? What's up with that show?
Just it's a 13 to 25 minute, that's called The View from LA, and it's on every Monday live at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, 2:30 p.m. Toronto time. And I interview people, or I talk about, something that's happening in town that week, somebody that's got a gig, somebody that's got a new record. We did a really fun one with Russ Ferrante where we broke down Imperial Strut, which is like his Bible as far as, and we also broke down The Tortoise and the Hare, which we'll probably have on later in January. But yeah, we had a lot of friends on and just talking about, Jeff Hamilton talked about his Christmas record, which was really great. And yeah, a lot of friends and a lot of concepts. And then sometimes we do some silly, dumb stuff. And he's Brad Barker, the program director at Jazz FM, is just a wonderful guy. And we've had a lot of fun doing it.
How long does the show run? I mean,
less than a half hour, between, around 15, 20 minutes.
Oh. Is it archived too? Can I go back?
They're archived. Yeah, if you go to Jazz FM 91's website, if you go to podcast, it's not a podcast. I don't know why it's there, but The View from LA, or if you just Google The View from LA, Jeff Babko or Jazz FM 91, it shows up. And I think we have, between 2 and 3 years of weekly shows up there. Some really fun.
That's cool. Yeah.
Really fun.
I love it.
Yeah, a lot of folks who recognize and know, and we have a lot of fun, and I learn a lot. As I'm sure you feel the same. I learned so much from listening to other people's experiences and perspectives. It's really fun.
Yeah, it's great. I'm not a true instrumentalist, although I do play some instruments. But so of course my questions are, from a singer point of view, who is a musician but still a singer, and I've seen other shows on where a keyboard player will be talking to a keyboard player, and they're going to talk about other stuff. But I've learned so much. It's just, I think this is going to take forever. I'm trying to listen to each one of my interviews and like take the aha moments. But the aha moments always change. It's like what was aha to me during the conversation, I might not even think of that anymore, but I might see a different aha moment. And then if I listen to that again the next day, I might hear something else. So it's an interesting process. I still want to do it, but I've only just begun. I even made a Patreon just to kick myself in the butt, so I have people to answer to,
That's great. Accountability.
Exactly.
I feel the same, because I have to edit them down to work for a live radio, and so really we try to aim for about 15 minutes, and so I try to get, often I'm talking to my friends or heroes. In Russell's case, I could listen to him talk for 6 hours and I couldn't get everything I wanted. So Alan Pasquale, we had a great talk, and it's hours but you're right, until I have to edit it down and boil it down to usually 2 to 5 nuggets of chunks of sound bites, I realized, oh, this is where actually this is where the magic was. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is cool. It's great. It's kind of what I love about producing too, just doing that process.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And I mean, Russell is just, he's so much fun.
Too
So
bad
when
he went to
Russell,
Georgia.
yeah, when Russell first came to LA,
Huh?
that's when I met him. So
Oh yeah.
we were both like early 20s, and he was an accompanist, And there was even a song, sometime you'll have to ask him about this. There was a song that he gave to me to sing. I kind of remember. The title is. I mean, nobody's ever really used it except me. Da, 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 da. So the beginning part was in some crazy time signature, very rhythmic, and then the bridge went into like kind of a straighter.
Wow, I can hear this.
Yeah. Da, 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 da. I'm trying to think of the name of it. Um, do, 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 da, 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 da. Anyway, it was a great song, and Russell is just, one of the kindest people in the world. And then I've seen his trio play at Sam First this year, and
Yeah.
just beautiful. And
Yeah.
who's on drums?
Steve Schaefer, right?
Steve Schaefer. Wow,
Yeah.
just so musical. The whole thing is so great. Actually, one video I saw, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but was with Bobby McFerrin and the Yellow Jackets
Yep.
live. Have you seen that?
Yep.
It's friggin' amazing. Bobby McFerrin is he's the baddest. And, oh my God, that's really a great video.
I love the record they made. That Dreamland, I think, was that tour, and that's a great. Yeah, Russell is, and he's so prolific with composition, and
Yeah,
he's a pianist. He's just done, and like you said, he's the loveliest guy ever.
yeah, totally.
Should be way
Um,
more of a jerk for being that good.
yeah, man, Russell, what's wrong with you, man? So I was just going to show, your, this is you on Spotify.
Me on Spotify. Look at me.
And these two are on sale.
Hey.
Okay, Roland, come on, man. You're the buyer here. And Dan. Roland and Dan always make you about 0.0003
Oh,
cents
thanks,
richer.
guys.
So here's El Musico. What can we listen just a little to one of these songs? Which song?
You tell me. You take a pick. I'll give you the story. There's some weird ones and there's some nice ones.
I don't know. Batcave is probably weird.
Batcave is weird. I think that's me in a studio making noise.
What about? I don't know. You said I don't know. Well, I don't know. You tell me. You know them better than I.
Borders is a pretty song that everyone seemed to like, that everyone seemed to want to cover for 2 seconds. Stars is the one that everyone seemed to want to cover for. Dan Schnell, we recorded that, and some other guys. So it's a pretty song.
Let's see. Oh. Pretty, very pretty. Oh, that is a really beautiful song. Wow.
Thanks.
Yeah, what I love about that song is it's very simple, and I mean the actual song itself is beautiful and simple. I like to call songs like that like little jewels, and it's the kind of song that draws you into playing it over and over. And the process of doing that, which is a really kind of a yummy process, just over and over because it's beautiful, and every time it kind of changes slightly, and there's something rich that comes out of it. Very nice.
Thanks. Yeah, I used to be fascinated with how complicated something could be compositionally, and I still am for
Yeah.
sometimes, but I've found that as I get older, I try to let harmony and melody dictate how the song unfolds, and rather than there are some technical exercises that become songs, of course, but it's funny when everybody was wanting to play the song, it's trickier to blow through. As I hear my solo there, I'm like, oh, it's I feel like I've got my Thomas Brothers guide out and I'm going page to page. I'm not. It's a little tricky, like it doesn't go where you want it to go all the times,
Yeah.
which is cool, which I like about it. So it's deceptively complicated, but not technically so. It's more just the way that it's almost like a canon or something. The way it unfolds, it has a couple surprises that you have to have
Yeah.
your eyes open and your ears open. But it's yeah, I like the way it turned out, and really we only cut that record in an afternoon, so I'm glad we got it. Glad we got something useful.
Yeah. I've had experiences like that too. I have one. Did you ever know Yun Sung Cho?
No.
Piano player. He was a good friend of June's. He was like in the Blue Whale hang. Then he moved back to Korea. He's really a brilliant piano player, kind of chickish like.
Yep.
And so while he was here, we worked together. And before he went back, we just thought, let's go in the studio and just do something, just to get it down. So, John Leftwich?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's a really good engineer. So we went in there and ended up with this really cool record.
Cool.
Yeah, and yeah, it was great, and we didn't intend to have it be a record.
That's
But
so great when I mean, I think there's great things about both, setting out to make a record, and and especially now, with the Sam First Records, there's
yeah,
an artist share involved, and donors and all this. But I love I mean, the great thing about having a TV gig and work is that I'm just putting out music based on that. I think the music needs to be heard, and I don't need to look for validation but funding from.
yeah,
I'm funding it if I think it should come out, but it's not easy, it's taking money away from my family and mortgage and stuff like that. But if I think it deserves to be heard, and sometimes I'm like, does anybody hear this music? I'm
yeah,
not sure. But it's not. It's for the greater good. If I think the music is being of service and not just an ego stroke, and that's tough. Who's to say until? But we put out a weirdo record called Crow Nuts like 10 years ago or something, with Tim LaFave and Lewis Cole and Dan Rosenboom and gosh, who else was on? It was a fun Alex Budman, fun record, and but super weird and does anybody hear it? I don't know, but I pressed vinyl and it turns out, every so often, like a great keyboard player or came up to me and said, what was the sound you used? And they're asking these specific questions where people heard it, and I don't necessarily see it in real time or streams or whatever, but it's like that's kind of, I listen to pretty obscure records. I reached out to Alan Broadbent about a trio record that he made at Sage and Sound, which you saw earlier, and he said the same thing. It was from like 1980 or something, and he said literally nobody heard that record, and it's so good. I'm like, everybody, this should be like a record everybody has heard and listened and references, but it's been happening for generations. So you just put out music because you believe in it and in its place in the world, and then you can't get hung up in the results. If everybody loves it or if nobody hears it, you have to feel like you did the right thing to serve the music. But it's tricky.
Yeah, it's yeah. It's a huge piece of life for us. Huge. And yeah, you can have all kinds of varying deep opinions about it too. It's just crazy. It's crazy, Um, over the years, you hear people ask you about it, who aren't involved in the music industry, and they wonder, why are you even doing this? And it's exactly what you said. That's why, because you just got to. It's like you hope that it's valuable to some, either like I kind of feel like it's valuable to the makeup of reality. I actually do feel like that. It adds this piece of art into reality, and it makes it better. So,
You're unearthing something that wouldn't have existed had you offered it and had you let it out. I mean, it's selfish in a way if you keep it in.
yeah,
Uh, and so, and often I think the number one question or comment from somebody at a show is, "Oh, when I hear you play, I wish I'd continued piano lessons." And I said that we played at Libretto on the 23rd, and somebody said it to me, and I said, "Listen, we far more need listeners than more pianists. It's fine. Did you appreciate it tonight? Then great. Then you have enough piano experience or whatever personal experience. We don't need a trillion pianists. Don't lament that. Just thank you for supporting music and for having it connect with you. That having that channel open. That's what musicians need. We don't, if you want to, by the way, no statute of limitations to pick up the piano. Well, pick up the piano, but to play the piano again, you go right back as sitting there still, So people always apologize, and I always go, man, the fact that you're here listening really brings us joy and purpose. So, you know,
yeah, that's a really interesting thing that people do. It's almost like you have flipped a switch by them listening. That switch of guilt or shame or, whatever. It's something, you're hitting yourself over the head. It's like I didn't achieve this, and I love it so much. But that's great that you say that to them as far as being
my
a
dad
listener.
made me try t-ball and basketball, and horrible at horrible at every sport. I was just horrible. So I think, do I regret? Oh boy, I love the Lakers. Do I? Nope, that wasn't my lane. I'm good. You guys, you guys do your thing. I'll be over here. It's cool. We're not gonna all be great. And you should have seen me try to make my kids pancakes this morning without measuring cups. It didn't work out as well as I'd hoped. So you gotta
My
learn.
husband can teach you how to do that.
I'm usually better about it when I realize where are our mixing cups and what I don't know what one cup of milk, and I gotta go. So it's fine. I stopped kicking myself. It's doing the best I can.
So I had forgotten actually until you just mentioned libretto that you were like the first guy who approached Corey, right, to play.
I mean, he
Yeah.
says so. And so my wife was it was height of lockdown. It was January 2021. So really no one's been playing out. Everyone's doing live streams from home. You're doing this. Thank you for providing this service. But it was that weird time where I didn't, a lot of people missed playing out. I really liked being home with my family for the first time without having to, you heard the 7-day schedule. I was, it's 4 days out, 3 days out, it was a lot. So being able to show my kid how to ride a bike properly, being home and for dinners and cooking dinners and just that was important for us to kind of recenter. But my wife, we were up in Paso, which is about a half hour from where I am now, and I can see the highway 46. Um, and she was looking at a couch, and I was like, I can't look at a couch for more. I got about a good solid 8 minutes to look at a couch, and then I've got to do something else. She could look for 3.5 hours at a couch, and I'm not. So my kid and I went and found coffee in Amsterdam, which is Corey and Kate's sister spot in Paso.
Yeah.
And I met Kate, and we started talking. I started asking about the Steinway, and the whole staff, even and Corey, I don't know if he told this story, but the girl at that point sweeping up knew the model Steinway it was. I'm like, something's weird here. Why do you guys all know about the piano? And we struck up, and then I went back to get my wife from the furniture store, and they had figured out who I said, I'd love to. They said, would you play? I said, I play, but I'm curious about the piano. We all kind of figured out what each other were doing, and who we each other were. And Corey was meeting with James, who was helping him book music then, mostly local. And James said, oh my God, you play at the Blue, or used to play at the Blue Whale. Yeah, it was just about to close. Could you bring people up? I said, yeah, I mean, no one's really playing out right now, so I don't really know. And then they said, would you play here a solo piano? And I hadn't played a solo piano gig since college. I don't think since like Fort I just don't love the way I sound by myself. I love interacting with others, so I get bored with myself. I said, sure, it'd be great to practice on a great Steinway. And you couldn't really pack the place because COVID, so it was open windows, and it was a nice way to get back into playing publicly. And then I spoke to Josh. I think I spoke to Josh Nelson about it. I've spoken to a couple pianists. Once I realized what they were doing, it's really special. You can stay up there. And then when I realized, the place speaks for itself. You just go there and you breathe in the vibe, and you realize who Corey and Kate are and what the space is. And then I was playing a duo gig with Cave, and my wife was playing some violin. So that summer, and they had discovered libretto, and Corey said, come over and see what we're doing over here. And it's just the fact that it's done what it's done for the scene, especially with the lack of a lot of rooms in LA proper, that you can go to this place, and nobody in Paso, the locals aren't really, it's not LA. So in LA, there's often a thing where you need, there's industry people, or there's people that there's a bit of a dynamic in when you play out in LA, that's a bit of it's auditioning in a way always for, shoot, Larry Klein's over there and so and so. And so I gotta be on here. Really, it's about the music. Most folks that come in aren't in the industry. It's not playing for our peers. There's a great thing about playing for our peers, but there's a great thing about just playing for people that aren't judging. They're just drinking great wine, enjoying music. And the comments I get are so different up here than in LA. It's just wide-eyed kind of appreciators. It's just a lovely thing they've created. So Corey claims that I lit the fire. All I did was kind of bridge what they were doing with people I knew, and a lot of people started asking, hey, what's the deal? I said, deal's basically just make the drive, and I won't need to tell you anymore. You're gonna be begging to come back. And it happened 100%. I think Jane Monheit was there last 2 nights, or maybe tonight too. Everyone just comes back. Can't wait to come back.
Yeah, I know. Me too. Yeah, and I got to drive up and back with Larry Koontz. So,
Oh, perfect.
8 hours of talking with Larry Koontz was
another one of the best humans ever to be put on the earth.
Yep.
He was just gigging with my wife. They did a Seth MacFarlane gig the other night, and I said the same. Whenever I hear Larry's name, it's like instant joy. What a wonderful human being he is. And
I know.
One of the best ever.
Yep. Well, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, because his dad is really cool, and his mom, really cool people. I have just something that I'd like to play at least a little bit of, which is intriguing. My friend Dan Davila is posting your videos here, but
me and my teacher.
Whoops. Need some volume.
Sounds way better muted, trust me.
Wow. I won't play the whole 8 minutes, but that was really great.
Yeah, that was so fun to get to do that. They just have to have two pianos at the whale, and in conjunction of my gig with my teacher. David was my gateway to, he had me, Dave Roystein, who runs the CalArts jazz program, had me doing transcriptions of pop tunes from the radio when I was 11 years old, and just guiding me into jazz and into modern music and improvisation. And I owe so much to David. So it was really fun. We used to play two pianos when I was a kid, all the way through high school. So that was the first time we'd done that in a long time, and it was really fun to do it as two grown-ups.
And you guys brought in an extra piano.
So they had one. June had one for another gig. There was somebody that was a something artist that wanted their piano there. So we were able to just piggyback on that, and the piano was still there. So it was pretty awesome.
Cool. Yeah, that was great. I think David Breitstein is so great.
Love him so much. I owe him so much. And he and Larry get to work, Kuntz get to work together a lot. And I know they just played Sam First last week or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, Roy, man, I don't know anybody that doesn't love him. Later, but he's also such a composer.
Well, Jeff Babko, thank you so much. It's been 2 hours. Woo. And thank you so much for spending this time. I appreciate it a lot. It's been really fun to get to know you. And yeah. It's funny, somewhere during our conversation, I realized that I think I had met you somewhere, and I can't remember where. But anyway, now I really feel like I met you.
Oh, cool. Yeah, for sure. Same.
Thanks a lot. Anything anybody should look for coming up, or just the same old stuff?
Check the Sam First website for the Clam City record. I think they're sending out the last email soon about that. That's coming out, and that you'll see a lot of that funding for Sam First's record label is doing great stuff. I know Rachel Eckroth's got a record coming out, and Josh has a record. And it's it's a double album in our case, and it turned out so great. I'm so excited for people to hear it. And it's called Clam City, hilarious, dumb name. And the duo record with David Pilch called The Libretto Show, which will come out in June. And that's what
Wow, man. Definitely.
back on with Kimmel. So you can look for our 20th anniversary show in a couple weeks, and going out with the Steve Gadd band in a couple of weeks to Japan. And
Fun.
life is okay.
Well, that's great, man. I'm going to invite you to end the session, and I'm going to stay on because there's so much coming. I told you my January is just getting like weirdly packed. So I want to tell people about it a little bit, people in LA especially. But thank you, man.
Leave the room so you can have full reign of the speaking to your people. Thank you, people, and thank you, Cathy, for having me.
Thanks, Jeff.
Do your thing.
Okay. Bye. Jeff Babko. Wow. Wow. I have to say, what did I say? I said at the on the top of my little PR blurb, like, wow, I don't even know what to talk about. He's doing so much. But I wanted to, those of you, especially in LA, although there are a few things that are going to be streaming, but I wanted to tell you about a lot of stuff going on right now. I mean, I can barely keep up. And if you're on my email list, I apologize for sending out a lot of emails. I'm trying to figure out how not to overload you. Yesterday, I sent one out that had all of the things, and then like with a little read more, and you can go to my website to see what I'm talking about. But it was funny. I thought, should I wait? I feel like something else is going to happen. Sure enough, last night, something else came on my plate. I'm trying to say no, but I can't. Okay, so next week, if you're in LA, if you want to jam and or listen to me sing, both, you can do both of those on the first Saturday of every month. And so next week, January 7th, is the first Saturday. That's at the conference room in Playa Vista. It's an early gig, 6:30 to 9:30. So I do a set and then we jam. There's a lot of singers, but everybody's welcome. And the website says, you need to spend $50, but that is absolutely not true. I think they just put that out there in hopes that people will. You can spend anything you want. So it's a great band. It's Dave Arnay on piano, John Leftwich on bass, and Aaron Serfati on drums. So it's very nice, really cozy. People think of it as a real quality jam session. Then, what just came on my plate is Sunday, the next day, January 8th. I'm hosting a performance at the G Spot, which is our favorite home venue, one of our favorite home venues here. And that's in Highland Park near downtown. And it's going to be a great singer named Maria DeGallo. Oh, shoot. I always. Pugliario. Oh, gosh. Well, now I have to go and look and see what my. I don't call her this. This is why I'm stuttering. I call her Maria Shepard because she's married to Bob Shepard. But her name, she's a really good singer. She has a very interesting history. She's Argentinian. And so her name is Maria. Let's see. La Puga Lario. I have to say that a few times. Maria Puga Lario. I'm just going to show you. I'm going to be sending this out soon. So here we go. Maria Puga Lario and Bob Shepard, her husband, who probably you all know, with John Beasley on piano, Derek Oles on bass, and Mark Ferber on drums. Oh my God, this is going to be a great. So I'm going to be sending this out shortly. Sunday, January 8th, 7 o'clock, and $30. And that includes that you get snacks and beverages, wine. It's limited seating. And yeah, it's going to be really, really cool. So that's one thing. That's next week. The jam session on Saturday and Maria's gig on Sunday. The following week, I'm just going to tell you about January, but there's lots of stuff in February too. January 15th, Sunday, 2 to 5. I'm at the Urban Press and in Glendale, which has turned out to be a really cool room. And so, excuse me. So my band, well, actually, I invited Mon David to sing too. So it's Mon and I. And then the great Mitchell Long on guitar. My pal, who I haven't played with in a long time, Edwin Livingston on bass. And Joey DeLeon on drums. That is going to be really fun. You can see all this, by the way, on my website. But the following week, January 19th, which is a Thursday, I'm singing at Casey's in the Valley in Reseda with, just a great standard band. It's Dave Moscow and Henry Newmark on drums, Dave Moscow on piano, Dan Sawyer on guitar, and it's usually Jack Darrow on bass. It's just a great straight-ahead band. It's an old bar, no cover, cheap drinks, very friendly crowd. We just have a good time. So that's Thursday the 19th. Let's see. There's so much great people playing now too. Which Sunday the 22nd, for you Judy Carmichael friends, Judy and Larry Kuntz. Judy is a stride piano player. She's going to be at I think it's the Yamaha. Is it the Yamaha or Steinway? I think it's the Steinway showroom in Beverly Hills during the day. Sunday the 29th, that's the last Sunday, I will be performing at the G-Spot. And with a really great band. It's going to be Gary Fukushima on piano, Bob Bowman on bass, who's a great bass player coming in from Montana. He used to live here. Bob Shepard and Kendall Kay. We're going to hang out. It starts at 6. We hope to have some guest artists come, and it's going to be really fun. In February, Rosanna Vitro is coming, and she's going to give a workshop on Friday, February 3rd in the evening. Rosanna is one of the best clinicians I've ever seen, and that's saying a lot because I've literally seen hundreds of clinicians because I used to do clinics for 16 years, like 8 a month, and not only just me teaching. The following night, Saturday the 4th, the first Saturday of the month, back to the conference room in Playa Vista for my set and a jam. The following week, Sunday, February 12th, again at the G-Spot, a beautiful young singer, upcoming singer. She's getting really well known. Her name is Tawanda, and she has an outstanding band. I didn't write it down in my book, so I can't remember. Then Monday, February 13th, in the evening, I am doing a master class online for those of you who are across the planet for Alexis Cole, who a few years ago started a really great jazz singer platform called jazzvoice.com. She's had all kinds of people on there teaching, including me, but I'm going to be giving a master class, and it's very cheap. It's $15. I mean, it's online, and it's an hour and 15 minutes. But, still, it's cool. Speaking of workshops, I had such great response last month for starting up workshops again. And so I'm going to do 2 in February. One is Sunday, February 19th, and one is Saturday, February 25th. Some people like Sundays or Saturdays. It's during the early afternoon, 4 hours long, with piano and bass. And it's limited student number, and you each get a half hour. So it's really good. I think every student benefited in a really nice way. People like just begged me to do it again, so we're doing it again. So that's also on my site. And one more thing, while I'm in February 26th, which is the last Sunday of the month, again, I'm hosting a concert at the G-Spot with a great swinging jazz trio, really great. John Mayer on piano, longtime professional player. Derek Oles on bass, who's like the king of bass. And Joe LaBarbera, who's, the king of drums. So that should be really good. You can find all these on my website again. And I'm really glad you're here. Please excuse what will seem like consistent emails coming out, but I'm trying to be as thoughtful about them as possible so that just look in the subject and you'll see something you're interested in or not. Maybe you're not interested in workshops, so just ignore those, etc. Well, everybody, we're going to be doing archives the rest of the week. Tomorrow is Layla Bialy, who's a really talented singer-songwriter from Canada. Some of you probably know of her. She's really good. She's jazz, but she brings in other influences. Then Friday, Rio Sakairi, who is, she's in New York, and she runs something called the Jazz Gallery, which is a venue, basically. And she's really interesting. She's been doing it a long time. Saturday, the great organist who Toby Simmons introduced me to a long time ago, or maybe not. Maybe I met him some other way. I can't remember. Brian Charette. He's from the East Coast. He's really good. He does a live show from time to time that's really interesting, very kind of electronic, but he plays B3, and yeah, he's really talented. And then Sunday we're going to end off with Stacy Hoffman from San Francisco. For 20 years, she and Madeline Eastman, the singer, ran Jazz Camp West, which was in San Francisco every summer. Really cool jazz camp, really, really cool jazz camp, and of which I taught at. Anyway, Stacy's not a singer, but she's a creator and community builder, and she's created some astounding things in San Francisco, which introduced jazz to young people, and it's just great programs. So she's really cool. That'll be on Sunday, and then we'll get back to live people. I have some really cool people coming up, really cool people, and yeah, just check it out. You'll see. You'll see. Go to my website, CathySegal-Garcia.com, and you'll see. So thanks, everybody. Fun hanging out today. Jeff Babko was really fun. Thanks a lot. Bye. Have a good evening.